What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. All right, moving on to our power rankings. So, as I said, we had 25 losses out of our top 10 teams from 2 weeks ago. Specifically, our top 8 teams lost 18 games. So this is going to be a weirdly negative power rankings in the sense that I'm going to kind of complain about all the teams to some extent, just because I thought a lot of their downsides were on display this year. It's just going to be kind of the theme, except for the Clippers. The Clippers went 5-0 since our last ranking, so they're going to be fine. We had 2 teams drop out. The Pelicans, they've gone 2-4 since our last rankings and basically lost to every good team they played over that span, and their defense has fallen apart. Then the Miami Heat, they've lost 6 games in a row. They've been the worst offense in the league over that span and the 29th ranked defense. So the bottom's fallen out for Miami. They're off the rankings for now as well. So without any further ado, number 10, the Indiana Pacers. Pascal Siakam is already helping the Pacers hold up better in the physicality areas of the game. He's averaging 8 rebounds per game. Before the trade, the Pacers were the 4th worst rebounding team in the league. In the 6 games since, the Pacers have been the 8th best rebounding team in the league. So from 4th worst to 8th best just since the Pascal Siakam trade. It just goes to show you how much having a real high-quality NBA forward as that low man in the 4 spot can help reinforce a team that was really struggling in the physicality areas of the game. They've never been much of an offensive rebounding team, but they've been the 4th best offensive rebounding team since the trade. So they've brought a new element to their offensive attack through attacking the offensive glass. They actually beat Phoenix the other night, just relentlessly attacking the offensive glass. They've now won 3 games in a row, all without Tyrese Haliburton. Pascal Siakam, in the 6-game span, is averaging 21 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists on 59% from the field, 39% from 3, too. He's given them legit shot creation. So far in 6 games for the Pacers, Siakam's ran 60 pick and rolls, ISOs, and post-ups, including passes, leading to 80 points. 80. 1.33 points per possession. I talked about this before the trade, but Pascal was having one of his best shot creation seasons of his career in Toronto before coming over, especially out of the post. And so he's come over and brought that extra element immediately. One other guy I wanted to shout out was Andrew Nembhard. He's kind of stepped into that primary shot creator role from the perimeter, or from the guard position, I should say, since Tyrese Haliburton got hurt. Here's the thing, like Andrew Nembhard's good. I broke down a game last year, if you guys remember, against the Warriors, where he I want to say he ran something like 30 pick and rolls in a game that led to 50 points. He just utterly picked apart the Golden State Warriors in a game. He can play. And it's just a team that's loaded up with guards. And so he's been squeezed from time to time. But I've seen a lot of talk about whether or not Tyrese Haliburton is as valuable as people think because the Pacers have looked good without him from time to time. And it's how about we just credit the fact that they're really deep at guard? And so when they suffer an injury at guard, they have another really good guard waiting to step into that slot. And also, they're 7-6 without Tyrese Haliburton this year. It's not like they're killing people. Also, Pascal Siakam is awesome and has gone a long way towards helping them on that front, as they've gone 3-0 in their last 3 games. Number 9, the Philadelphia 76ers. I was really high on the Sixers after their 6-game winning streak. They beat Sacramento, they beat Houston, they beat Denver in that impressive game where Joel Embiid kind of shut down the Nuggets offense down the stretch, and they beat Orlando. But then they went into Indiana and laid an egg, and then they late scratched everyone against Denver. And look, I understand that Embiid fans kind of feel like there's a narrative here and that the narrative isn't necessarily fair. But guys, Embiid's not doing himself any favors on this front. Last year, Joel Embiid played in 13 straight games before sitting out in Denver and then immediately played in the next 5 games. So he played in 18 out of 19 games, and the one he sat out was the game in Denver. This year, he plays in 6 straight games, including hunting points in a 70-point night against the San Antonio Spurs, and then goes, oh, well, I'm resting my knee. I'm going to sit out against Denver. He told Jokic he'd see him there. He said so in his post-game presser after they won in Philly. He wasn't on the injury report before the game. Shams Charania reported 15 minutes before the game he was not on the injury report. The Sixers on social media were advertising the matchup as Jokic versus Embiid, and then he sat out. They're almost certainly going to get fined for it. And again, like when you're talking about the narrative, if you're going to gun for 70 points against the Spurs and then sit out against Denver saying we want to make sure his knee is ready for the playoffs, you're going to get the side eye from a lot of people. You just are. It's completely fair criticism. And also, I mean, this team kind of needed a signature win. They're 29-15, but they played a comically easy schedule. Just 10 of those 29 wins were against teams that are 500 or better. As of right now, they've played the third easiest schedule in the league per opponent win percentage. Those 10 wins against 500 or better teams ranks 16th in the NBA. They are also just 1-4 on the road against teams in my contender list, with their one win being against the young and tiny Oklahoma City Thunder. So, like, they needed this kind of, like, big road win to kind of just almost as like a test. Like, it would have been a great test for them, and they punted it. And it just left a bad taste in my mouth. So I have the Sixers down at number 9 right now. Number 8, the Cleveland Cavaliers. They've won 9 of their last 10 games, including 2 wins over the Bucks and a couple of other dominant road wins against the Atlanta Hawks and the Orlando Magic. They are number 1 in defense and number 1 in net rating by a mile over that 10-game stretch. The defense has been super impressive. Isaac Okoro and Max Strus are competing at the point of attack. Dean Wade has been excellent in off-ball situations and especially in switches. Donovan Mitchell has had some of the best closeouts I've ever seen from him in his NBA career. He looks locked in on the defensive end. And then Jared Allen is this super versatile big. Honestly, like, they're not the most talented team in the world with Evan Mobley and Darius Garland out of the lineup, but the lineup is much more synergistic now. Like, it actually falls in line with my kind of like belief system surrounding the whole like like normal basketball lineup type of construction, because you have athleticism in the backcourt, you have a perimeter forward, you have an interior forward. Like, it's all lined up a lot better now because you just have guys kind of in all of the needed positions to construct a basketball team, especially on the defensive end of the floor. It just looked different when you were constantly running out there with 2 small guards, right? And I mean, like, the Bucks really wanted to win that last game in Milwaukee. They really wanted to win that one. And they just the Cavs just went in there and beat them and shut them down on offense. Like, 4 different guys got stops on an island against Damian Lillard. They were constantly building a wall in front of Giannis and making him into a passer. It was a really impressive win. The Cavs are good. I have Carter Rodriguez from the Chase Down pod coming on the show on Wednesday for a deep dive on the Cleveland Cavaliers. So Cavs fans, make sure you're around on Wednesday. That should be fun. All right, number 7, the Milwaukee Bucks. They are 4-2 since our last rankings. They beat the Cavs once and had a dominant win over a reeling Pelicans team. But I thought the Cavs' losses shined a light on some of their issues. We've talked a lot about their point of attack defense, but I want to focus on 2 other issues that have been popping up. 1, their transition defense. Cleveland exposed their lack of transition defense in their last 2 losses. They scored 67 points in transition in those 2 games. Constantly bad floor balance, constantly bad principles, like not getting matched up, not communicating, not sprinting back. And most importantly, they've looked slow. In transition, you can really see their lack of foot speed beyond Giannis in the lineup. It's been a huge problem for them. And then secondly, another Dame stinker in the last loss in Cleveland. He couldn't beat anyone off the dribble unless it was Sam Merrill. He kept having to settle for these tough contested jump shots. I talk a lot about this like push and pull when it comes to on-ball scoring. Like, if you're the defender and I'm the offensive player, and you're terrified of my pull-up jump shot, and you're terrified of my ability to beat you off the dribble, that's the perfect situation. Because then you're going to have to either play up and I'm going right by you, or you're playing off and I'm knocking down the jump shot, right? But like, let's say my jumper's not going in. Now, all of a sudden, even if I'm an outstanding driver to the basket, you're going to start giving space, and I'm going to I have a hard time like finding those angles. And you're seeing that kind of go both ways for Dame. He's not making these pull-up jump shots, so guys are giving him a little bit more space. He's not as quick as he used to be, so as he's starting to make those downhill moves, guys are beating him to spots, and you're seeing it manifest in the numbers. Over the course of this 18-game stretch, over the course of Dame's last 18 games, 23.8 points per game on below 40% from the field and 30% from 3. An 18-game stretch. And we're almost halfway through. We are over halfway through the season now. And to put it simply, the Bucks will not win the title unless they get the Dame from last year. And they need some other stuff to go right as well. But they need Dame to be better than he has been. He has not been very good this year. Number 6, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Just 2-3 in their last 5 games. Just dropped games to Charlotte and San Antonio. Now, some of this, I should say most of this, is just the letdown after getting through the tough part of their schedule, right? Like they get through this insane stretch where they play like 20, like something crazy, like 16, 17 straight games against really good teams. And they did really well in that stretch. And then you kind of like, you're like, okay, we're good. We feel accomplished. And then you just exhale, right? Like you exhale. But the problem is the NBA is so damn talented that they'll make you pay for that. Charlotte has players. Brandon Miller is cooking right now, and he lit them up. LaMelo Ball picked them apart. He had like 13 assists in that game. Victor Wembanyama and Devin Vassell are hoopers. Like, if you don't bring it against the Spurs, they can beat you. And so, like, a lot of this is, like, effort. But the concerning part is their offense. My main concern with the Wolves all season has been their ability to function offensively in a slow-down environment, especially in that, like, kind of playoff type of environment. And the two things that we look at to kind of track that are, like, half-court offense and clutch offense. That's the closest thing in the NBA regular season to the playoffs. And they've been a mediocre half-court offense this year, and they've been a mediocre clutch offense this year. And especially as of late, they've been really bad in clutch situations on offense. They are 1-3 in clutch situations just in this 5-game stretch. Just a 92.1 offensive rating in those clutch situations. For the season, just a 108.9. That's not good. That's 75 minutes of slowdown end-of-game basketball where they have not been very good offensively. Like I said, Mike Conley is an older skill guard, and he was out for 2 of those games. They depend on him a lot, but at the same time, he's an older skill guard. Anthony Edwards is a superstar in the making, but he's very, very young, and young players struggle with decision-making. And then Karl Towns is a notorious poor decision maker in these types of situations. So it really doesn't matter how good their defense is or what the other advantages they have. If when they get into the slowdown environment, they can't execute as well as the other great teams around the league. It's been a consistent issue. It has been an issue in this stretch. The defense is real, and it's always going to give them a chance to win games, but they will face much better half-court execution teams than them, and that could end up being what gets them beat. Number 5, the New York Knicks. 6-1 since our last rankings. 12-2 in their last 14 games. Tied with the Clippers for the best record in the league over that span. 7th in offense. First in defense and first in rebounding. One ugly loss to the Orlando Magic in there where they kind of lost in a physical game and some ugly moments down the stretch of that game. But back-to-back dominant wins over the Eastern and Western Conference defending champions in the Miami Heat and the Denver Nuggets. OG Anunoby and Dante DiVincenzo are dominating at the point of attack defensively. Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle are bringing like a physical imposition on offense, although Julius Randle dislocated his shoulder. Hopefully he's okay. But they're wearing teams down. They're a really, really good team. I think the Knicks are one of those teams where like I don't think they can win the conference necessarily, but the teams that are above them that have flaws to exploit, like I would not be surprised if New York knocked off a Milwaukee. I would not be surprised if New York knocked off a Philly. They have the talent to do so, and those teams have flaws. It's really just when they get to the top tier of the NBA where I think they would run into some issues just in terms of firepower. Number 4, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Mixed results since our last rankings. They had impressive road wins at Minnesota and at New Orleans, but they got beat by the veteran Laker and Clippers teams. And then they got manhandled by Jalen Duren and the Pistons without Cade Cunningham last night. What a weird game that was. The offense is sputtering. They're 19th in offense over this 8-game span. Basically, everybody that's not Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Jalen Williams is struggling. Chet is slumping. Josh Giddey is slumping. Lou Dort is slumping. But in spite of all that, they're 5-4 versus my top 5 contenders, and they're the number 1 seed in the West. So they're holding down the 4 spot for me for right now. Number 3, the Boston Celtics, dropping down from number 1. Another disappointing loss in a major game. They got dominated by the Clippers on the tail. The Clippers were on a back-to-back, and they get dominated. They have 3 losses in their last 10 games. Here's how they break down. They are 7-0 against teams that are outside of my top 5 contenders. They are 0-3 against teams that are in my top 5 contenders, including 2 of those losses at home. And even worse, what has been my main concern for the Celtics team all year? Offensive process. Can they consistently hunt and take and make the right shots against the best teams in the league? They had 102 points against the Milwaukee Bucks. They had 100 points against Denver. They had 96 points against the Clippers. So they have only 3 losses in their last 10 games, all against my top contenders. All of them, the offense sputtered. That's concerning. It's very concerning. Jayson Tatum, last 5 games, 8 for 26 on pull-up threes. That's 31%. So we had a brief stretch where they were going in, and it looked great, and everything was great, and now we're back where we've been the previous 3 years. And again, guys, like 26 of them in 5 games. This is a third of his shot diet. A third of Jayson Tatum's shots are like pull-up threes off the dribble that he makes about a third of the time, if not less. And so, like, it was really discouraging. And again, like, that's the thing with Celtics fans. I have them all the time in my comments. They'll be like, why didn't you say anything after we beat the shit out of Miami? Or why didn't blah, 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 blah. And, like, again, I tell you guys, like, it's in the schedule. I schedule the games I'm going to cover. And I primarily schedule Celtics games when they're playing the best teams. And they keep losing to the best teams. And when they do, it's the same stuff that gets them beat the other times they lose to the best teams. And so, like, bizarrely enough, 7-3 in their last 10 games in a super, super concerning stretch of Boston Celtic basketball. They seem super, super dependent on Kristaps Porzingis as well. There's just, again, still have him as number 2 in my contenders list because everyone else has a bunch of issues too. And like I said at the start of this list, today's a very negative version of the power rankings, but I thought it was a concerning couple of weeks for the Boston Celtics. Number 2, the Denver Nuggets. 3-2 on their 5-game road trip. Big wins over Boston and Indy. Tough losses to New York and Philly. Teams with real size and physicality can give Denver some issues, especially when Denver's not locked in. Like Embiid's denial of Jokic really bothered their offense when they were down in Philly. New York's athleticism and passing lanes caused Jokic to turn the ball over uncharacteristically a lot. Like you could tell, like the big physical teams can give them some issues, but I still think this is the best team in basketball. And I think in the mix of all these teams struggling, I just trust them the most. So I'm keeping them at number 2. Number 1, the Los Angeles Clippers. They are undefeated since our last list, 13-2 in their last 15 games. Number 1 offense in the league over that span, number 6 defense. Doing a ton of damage on the offensive glass too. Their perimeter athleticism is a factor here. Like they are really athletic on the perimeter between Terrence Mann and Norman Powell and Russell Westbrook and Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Like they just bring wave after wave of perimeter athleticism. In a league that has so much more jump shooting, there's all these long rebounds. And so they can really do a lot of damage on the offensive glass just with their perimeter athleticism. But, and again, like they're a bottom 10 defensive rebounding team, even over this span. So like, it's important for them to try to kind of like make up for some of that on the other end of the floor. It's been interesting. An incredibly impressive ass kicking of the Celtics in Boston. Kawhi and Paul George just thoroughly outplayed Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They are looking flat out scary. And I'm ending the show like this today. I am moving my contenders again. I'm taking Milwaukee off of that 3 spot and I'm moving the Clippers up to number 3. So I'm going Denver, Boston, Clippers, then the Bucks. They just have fewer question marks, in my opinion. And they went from going 0-6 in their first 6 games after the Harden trade to being number 1 in our power rankings. Shout out to the LA Clippers.